Think back to 2020. In the presidential debate for all the candidates on the Democrat side, you might remember famously they were asked the question, raise your hand, they said on the stage, if you believe that illegal aliens should receive health care paid for by American taxpayers. Every single one of them raised their hand, to great applause in the audience from the Democrats who were there. Those hands included Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Now, what did they do? Did they follow through on that promise? Yeah, they absolutely did. Joe Biden used executive orders, and he expanded benefits, health care, to illegal aliens in his 4-year term. That was an outrageous violation of the existing federal law and of the principles of good stewardship. Those resources are not meant for people who break the law and come into our country. They're meant for U.S. citizens. And so they watered down these health programs. It was terribly dangerous. So we got the majority. President Trump has returned to the Oval Office with a mandate of 75 million Americans, this big popular vote win. The House Republicans received our largest popular vote total in the history of this institution. Republicans went immediately to work. And we passed the one big beautiful bill, the Working Families Tax Cut. And we fulfilled all the promises that we made. One of the key promises that we made, because you all know that the open border was probably the #1 issue in the election cycle, was that we would end that madness. We would cut off resources, hard-earned taxpayer dollars by American citizens not going to reward people for breaking our law and coming over the border. And we did that. The one big beautiful bill, the Working Families Tax Cut, included a huge provision. A big chunk of that bill was the health provisions. Now, why are we saying that they want to return and restore taxpayer-funded benefits to illegal aliens? Because that's exactly what they did. When they rejected the clean CR that we sent over, the Senate Democrats, Chuck Schumer, filed a counter-proposal. Now, what was in that counter-proposal? You can see it for yourselves. In fact, if you're watching at home, go to my website right now, speaker.gov. Go to the press releases tab, and you'll see it. It's listed right there. Just click on it. I'd like you to turn in your hymnals to page 57, okay? Section 2141. It is there in black letter. They filed this. This is not a talking point. This is what they proposed. They wanted to add, instead of the clean CR that keeps the government open for 7 more weeks to allow us to finish the work, they proposed a wild list of partisan priorities. Among them, they want to return $500 million to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting to prop up left-leaning and biased media organizations. We're not doing that. The American people don't want us to do that. We don't need the Corporation for Public Broadcasting funded by taxpayers anymore because we're in their age of ubiquitous media. There's, 200 of you guys here? There's so many outlets. We don't need to do that. We're not going to do that. They wanted to cut, in the Democrats' counter-proposal, I want you to read it for yourself, speaker.gov. Go there and check it out. They want to remove the rural hospital fund that Republicans fought so hard to put into the one big beautiful bill. We set $50 billion aside to take care of rural hospitals. Why would Chuck Schumer want to get rid of that? I don't know. A lot of those rural hospitals are in red states. You have to decide for yourself what the motivations are here. But they say they're for health care. Why would they want to do that? The other thing that they put in there is very important. And on page 57 in section 2141, not a Republican talking point, read from the Democrats' document themselves. They said that they want to repeal the health provisions of the one big beautiful bill. Now, why is that so important? Because I want to tell you what those health provisions did. They eliminated all of the taxpayer-funded benefits going to illegals. There was an amendment that was sent over to the Senate to ensure that illegals would not be getting health care paid for by taxpayer dollars. Illegal aliens, okay? 43 of the 47 Senate Democrats voted against that. This is just a few months ago. The bill was signed into law July 4th, and we cut all of that out. Let me tell you what some of those things are. The Democrats' counterproposal CR, the dirty CR we call it, as opposed to the clean CR, would result in nearly $200 billion being spent on illegal aliens and other non-citizens. Let me be specific. This is just a few of those, the reforms that we put in that they want to repeal and reverse. Number one, a provision that closes the California loophole. Now, that's a provision that's also been adopted by states like New York and Michigan and Massachusetts. Other states have followed, other blue states. The California loophole allows taxpayer-funded Medicaid for illegal aliens. We eliminated that in the big, beautiful bill. Their counteroffer is to repeal and reverse that. That would cost $34 billion of U.S. taxpayer funds. Number two, a provision that prohibits Medicaid from paying more for emergency care provided to illegal aliens than it does for American patients who are disabled or elderly or children. We eliminated that in their counterproposal that they have filed that you can read yourself. They want to repeal that. That would cost taxpayers $28 billion. Here's another one, number 3. They've counterproposed a provision that ends the Obamacare funding for non-citizens. The cost of that repeal would be $91 billion to all of you. Taxpayers, hardworking American citizens, would be funding that. A provision that repeals the Obamacare special rule for immigrants. That cost would be $27 billion for taxpayers. A provision that ends Medicaid funding for those improperly granted asylum and parole under President Biden's open borders. The cost of that would be $6 billion. I think that's actually a low estimate. You know, President Biden intentionally opened the border and Kamala Harris for 4 straight years. By some estimates, 20 million illegal aliens came from every country all around the world, and a lot of dangerous people came into the country. And you know what they did? They granted them all asylum. They gave them all this parole status so that they could roll on to taxpayer benefits. We've all been funding that. Republicans said, no, that does not comport with common sense. We're going to do right by Americans and not everybody else. We're not going to incentivize illegal immigration, and that's exactly what Biden and Harris did. It's what President Trump ran on to end, and we did that. It took the president about 2 months, and he closed that border tight. We don't have that problem anymore, but we still got to deal with the tens of millions of people who are here illegally. We're working on that. So the Democrats' so-called reasonable counterproposal would reverse all those common sense reforms I just listed and more. And I don't want you to take our word for it. I don't want you to regard this as some talking point. I want you to go read it for yourselves. Speaker.gov, go to press releases. You'll see it's the first thing listed. Click on the bill and go through it yourself, and you'll see it. The result of all this would be $200 billion at least in taxpayer-funded benefits going straight to illegal aliens. Those are the simple facts. They cannot refute it. We have been making the rounds in all the media and every mainstream media outlet that we can get to over the last few days, and no one can challenge the facts that are on the paper. It's right there for everybody to see themselves. We have lots to say about that, and I'll answer some questions, but I want you to hear from the rest of the leadership team. And our majority leader who's been working really hard on all this is Mr. Steve Scalise. Leader?
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as we mark day 2 of Chuck Schumer's shutdown, we know that there is a very straightforward way out of this, and that is for Senate Democrats to join with Senate Republicans and vote for the bill that opens up the government and allows negotiations to continue. Surely by opening up the government again, it doesn't resolve all of our differences, but it allows us to negotiate without Chuck Schumer holding the American people hostage. That's really what's going on here. You know, we had a vote on this House floor 2 weeks ago, and 99% of House Democrats voted to shut the government down. Led by their leader, Hakeem Jeffries, whipped their members to vote to shut the government down. And so they're running around this town right now doing podcasts and trying to be commentators. They're doing everything but being legislators. When they had an opportunity to actually govern, House Democrats voted to shut the government down. And now that the government's shut down, they're trying to blame somebody else for what they did. They voted to do this. They can get bailed out by Senate Democrats. The bill is still sitting over in the Senate. And so rather than trying to figure out who to assign blame to, what they should do is go over to the Senate, talk to their Senate Democrat counterparts and say, Senate Democrats, Chuck Schumer, open up the government again. And then let's have a negotiation over our differences. President Trump, you saw Vice President Vance as well saying, we will negotiate, but not while you're holding hostages of the American people. There are real differences we can negotiate. You know, they want to talk about all the Obamacare increases in premiums that they caused families. Obamacare is the health care law of the land, and it's leading to higher premiums for families. There are a lot of conversations that people can have about how to fix those problems. Throwing hundreds of billions of new taxpayer dollars to things like funding illegal alien health care is not the answer to that problem. And it surely is not the reason for Democrats to be shutting down the government. And yet that's what they're doing. Some of their own leaders have confirmed that's why they're shutting down the government. And it's unacceptable to most American people who just want the government to work for them and deserve that. And we had a vote on the House floor. You can go look at that vote. and see that over 99% of Democrats voted to shut the government down. It's a real vote that we held, and that bill is still sitting in the Senate. We stand ready to negotiate on a lot of differences. We are in a conference committee right now on 3 of the appropriations bills, and Tom Cole and his appropriators have passed all 12 of the bills out of committee. John Thune, to his credit, changed course from the old days of Chuck Schumer, when Chuck Schumer ran the Senate and didn't bring any of the appropriations bills out of committee. They're now moving those bills in the Senate, and so we can have a broader negotiation on how to properly fund government, how to properly set priorities over funding government, which, by the way, shouldn't be complicated. It's what every family does sitting around their kitchen table. They figure out how to properly budget their households. Businesses do this all the time. A small business, whether it's good times or bad, has to sit down and figure out how to make the budget work. Washington needs to do the same thing. And that means House Democrats and Senate Democrats need to stop holding temper tantrums, stop making $1.5 trillion demands for illegal alien funding, and vote to open up the government, release the hostages, and let's go get back to a negotiation over what the priorities of this country really should be. President Trump has proven he's ready to negotiate again. He brought all the leaders to the White House just a few days ago. He stands ready to resolve this, but the ball's in Chuck Schumer's hands right now. He has chosen to shut down the government, and he can't articulate any real reason except that they want to take things like $50 billion away from rural hospitals to fund health care for illegals. And the Speaker laid it out incredibly clearly. It's not some hypothetical. Chuck Schumer filed an alternative government funding bill, and it includes getting rid of all the verifications on things like making sure illegals can't get those taxpayer-funded benefits. They want illegals to get free health care benefits, and they're willing to shut the government down to do it. That's not where the country is. It's surely not why we should be here right now. But we stand ready to work. We've done our job in the House. It's time for the Senate to do their job and end this madness. Keeping our members tied together, united, focused on what we need to do is our whip. Tom Emmer.
Our men and women in uniform, veterans, air traffic controllers, farmers and ranchers, federal workers and their families, Americans who rely on telehealth and home care services. These are just a few of the victims of the Chuck Schumer Democrat shutdown. All because Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries care more about appeasing the radical members of their party than working in good faith to keep the government open. They are trying valiantly to claim that they are doing it to fight for Americans' health care. But their $1.5 trillion wish list, which slashes funding for rural health care, as you've heard from both the Speaker and the Majority Leader, while giving taxpayer-funded health care to illegal aliens, tells a much different story. The American people see their political charade for what it is. The good news is Democrats still have time to do the right and reasonable thing. Because Republicans have done our job, there is a clean, nonpartisan continuing resolution ready in the Senate to send to President Trump's desk right now. The question is, how long? How long will Democrats hold the American people hostage to play their political games? I hope they come to their senses soon. Until then, we're going to force them to go on the record about their self-inflicted shutdown every single day. And the consequences will be theirs to own, and only theirs. With that, I'll turn it over to our conference chair, Lisa McClain.
Thank you, and good morning, everybody. Listen, this is really simple. There is a way to open the government today. Pass the clean Republican CR bill that we already passed. I mean, it's really, really simple. That's it. Just pass it, right? Goodness, Democrats have done this 13 times before, right? The same bill, 13 times before. It's really, really simple. So what's the problem now? Ask yourself, what's the problem now? Democrats want to make their most radical followers happy. They're pandering to the radical Democratic arm of their party. And you know what? They want to spend your money to do that. They want to spend your money on government benefits to illegals. Your money. Where does that $1.5 trillion come from? It comes from your pockets. And you're going to give it to illegals. Nobody wants that, except the Democrats. They're going to spend your money on a climate crusade. And they're going to spend your money on radical media outlets. Gang, this is your money. It comes out of your pockets that you work very, very hard for. And more than $1 trillion they want to spend on their radical Democratic goodies. What's more, they want to make you pay for that all while gutting historic investments in rural health care, which is really interesting, right? What's their talking point now? Oh, health care, right? Then ask them, why would you gut $50 billion if you care so much about health care from the rural health care, right? Because they don't have any facts. All they have is talking points, right? And they can't remember what they're talking about. Right? They're talking out of both sides of their mouth. They want to take $50 billion away from rural health care. Gee, I wonder why. And since they didn't get any of those things on a silver platter, they want to throw a fit, a tantrum, and they want to shut the government down. And guess who pays the price for that? Real Americans do. So I ask Democrats, are you okay with this? Are you okay with mothers on WIC unable to get milk for their children? Answer that question, Democrats, because with your no vote, you are voting for mothers on WIC not to be able to feed their children. Are you okay with that? Ask them that when you talk to them, right? And ask the Democrats, are you okay with soldiers wondering how they're going to make ends meet when they aren't getting paid? That's their vote when they vote for the clean CR, when they have a no vote on the clean CR. They are voting, Democrats are voting, to make sure that troops aren't getting paid. Ask them if they're okay with that. And ask them if they're okay with delaying home purchases for families and benefits of veterans, right? Enough. Stop the hijacking of our government. Stop the political games. That's why the leadership team behind me put a clean CR on the table. We didn't play any political games. We didn't add a bunch of our wish lists, a bunch of our pet projects to the CR. No, we said enough with the games. Let's put the exact same CR on the table that the Democrats voted for 13 times. And you know what they said? They said no. So if the Democrats really care about the American people, pass the clean CR, stop hijacking the American people, and stop pandering to the progressive, radical arm of their base. Thank you.
Right here, sir. Yeah, yeah.
Does the president have the constitutional authority just because of a shutdown to lay off thousands of federal government workers or withhold funding for congressionally approved projects that are already under the
Yeah, he does. Okay, this is the way the system works. This is Chuck Schumer's decision is to hand, as I said on a couple interviews yesterday, the keys to the kingdom to the president, right? He has put himself in that situation, and it's completely unnecessary. The president takes no pleasure in this. The president did not want to shut down. I'm telling you this from my own testimony. I was in the Oval Office. He pleaded with Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries to do the right thing. Keep the government open. We'll talk about all these other issues later because that's how the process works. But failing that, because they have decided to vote to shut the government down, they have now effectively turned off the legislative branch, the Article 2 branch of, or the Article 1, sorry, the Article 1 branch of our government, and they've turned it over to the executive, okay? So in that situation, when Congress turns off the funding and the funding runs out, it is up to the Commander-in-Chief, the President of the United States, to determine how those resources will be spent. He has that responsibility given to him by the Democrats in the Senate. They can't complain about it. And he doesn't want to do it. But in this scenario, what they have to do is make very difficult decisions. Most of the responsibility falls to Russ Vought. He's the director of the Office of Management and Budget, as you know. Whomever is seated in the chair at OMB during a shutdown has to do the same thing. Russ does this reluctantly. We had a 45-minute telephone conference with him yesterday. He talked to all the House Republicans. He takes no pleasure in this because Russ has to sit down and decide, because he's in charge of that office, which policies, personnel, and which programs are essential and which are not. That is not a fun task. And he is not enjoying that responsibility. And it could end today if the Senate Democrats would come to their senses and do the right thing for the American people. But if they don't, and if they keep the government closed, it's going to get more and more painful because the resources run out and more things have to be reduced and eliminated. Now, when he sits down as the director of OMB, he will obviously have a subjective determination on the priorities. And what do you think he would do? Because what would any OMB director do under any president? They're going to look to see for the administration's priorities first and ensure that those are funded. And so those are some very serious determinations that have to be made. We want to protect hardworking federal workers. And these are people who protect all the rest of us, by the way. We mentioned TSA agents, Border Patrol agents. Our troops, the military, are not being paid, and so they're inflicting hardship on people for no reason. Is it constitutional? Is it lawful? Is it part of our system? Of course it is. It always has been. And the Democrats are the ones who have decided to inflict the pain, not the president. Back row, back row.
Polling showing the American public is on your side. I'm wondering if those layoffs happen in mass, thousands of federal workers are eventually cut from their jobs and programs. Do you worry you're going to sort of lose the support of the public in that scenario?
No, I mean, look, the reason that we're talking with you so plainly today is to explain to every single American citizen why this is happening. How in the world could they blame the people here who have done our job and sent over a clean CR to keep the lights on? There is no gimmick. People say, why aren't you negotiating with Schumer and Jeffries? Because I quite literally have nothing to negotiate. There's nothing I can pull out of the bill that was a Republican priority to say, oh, we won't do that. Why don't you guys vote for it now? I don't have anything. I didn't put anything in it to send it over. I'm stunned. I'm stunned that they have decided to shut the government down and hurt people. It is on them 100%. The New York Times poll that was put on the Senate floor yesterday, I think it was, day before, they pointed out to Chuck Schumer, who's from New York, of course, that the New York Times, clearly not a right-leaning organization, publication, has found that 65% of respondents said, please, Democrats, don't shut the government down because you don't get what you want. Many of them remember in New York, of course, what Chuck Schumer and AOC and all the rest. AOC literally said that on the House floor several months back. She said, it's not normal to shut the government down just because you don't get what you want. Well, what changed? What changed? It's on them and not us. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
We've learned that the Senate obviously may take up your bill again, but if it fails, we've been told it's possible senators could go home for the weekend. They won't hold any votes until Monday. Do you think the Senate needs to stay?
Of course they do. Of course they do. And the House is coming back next week, hoping that they will be sending us something to work on, that we can get back to work and do the people's business. They're anxious to come back, but the Senate Democrats, 44 of them, all the pressure should be on the 44 Democrats who were dug in to try to pander to the far left corner of their base. That's what this is. How important is it to appeal to the radical left of your base and hurt Americans? Because if they drag this on through the weekend, more and more people will be hurt. I want you to think about, I come from a big military district, okay? Louisiana's 4th Congressional District is home to Barksdale Air Force Base and the command of Global Strike. The Global Strike Command is in my district. In the south part of my district, we have Fort Polk and the Joint Readiness Training Center. I have lots of active duty military and lots of veterans. I want you to think about the young airman or the young soldier who's deployed right now, defending our freedom and all of us in America's interest. And they've left, I think of this one particular family. This gentleman is deployed. He's got a young wife at home, and they have 3 small children under the age of 6. She's not going to get a paycheck as long as Chuck Schumer is playing political games up here. They don't have a big, I know this family well, they don't have a large tranche of savings, okay? This is going to be a serious hardship. She won't be able to make the car note. She won't be able to maybe pay for groceries for the kids because Chuck Schumer is up here playing games to pander to the far left of his space. It's outrageous. Real people are getting hurt. Veterans are not getting health care services. We have suicide prevention programs, okay, that will not be funded because of this. This is not a game. FEMA services, if your flood insurance lapsed right now and you need to renew it, You can't do that right now. We have hurricanes off the coast of the United States right now. If you buy a home and flood insurance is required, which is in so many places around the country, you can't close on your home right now because Chuck Schumer and 43 friends in the Democrat friends in the Senate are making a game out of this. It is ridiculous. It is irresponsible and dangerous. We'll come in at any hour, at any day to get the job done, but they won't. Yes. Yeah, conservatives are very concerned about the subsidies. Not only that, but they're subsidizing not American citizens, they're subsidizing insurance companies with that, which has driven premiums up. It's got lots of problems, okay? I was in the Oval Office with the President, with Leader Thune, Leader Jeffries, and Leader Schumer a few days ago. And Leader Thune rightfully said to Chuck Schumer, that is a red herring in this, and you all know it. That is the subsidies that you're referring to don't expire until December 31st. We're at the end of September. You're trying to take a December policy issue and insert it into this discussion about whether we're going to keep government operating for the people. That is a ploy. They've done that simply so that they can show a fight against Trump and Republicans. Let me tell you what that is all about. There'll be lots of thoughtful discussion, deliberation, and debate about that because there's lots of opinions and it needs major reform. Leader Thune told Leader Schumer very clearly in front of the President, before that's even considered, you have to take on real reforms to address those issues. And they demonstrated right there in front of the President. He saw it for himself. That's not a simple issue. That's going to take weeks to deliberate and discuss and debate. But that's the beauty of the process. We have 3 months to do that. That is not an issue for today. The only issue is whether they're going to vote to keep the government operating for the people. Clear, plain and simple. Yes, sir.
Mr. Speaker?
Democrats want to not only have health insurance for illegals, but some of your Democratic colleagues over in the Senate are also talking about DEI programs that Democrats want to bring back. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, there's all sorts of. Remember, we sent over a 24-page clean CR. They sent over this thing that you'll have to see on my website to believe it yourself. But it's all chock full of all sorts of crazy things that they want to restore, and DEI has always been one of their big priorities. They want to spend $1.5 trillion new dollars of spending is what they're demanding to keep the lights on around here. It's absurd, and they should know it. They're all wrapped around the axle about these woke progressive programs being ended, but that's what the election was about. That woke progressive stuff is what the American people rejected. Some of our Democrat colleagues here are doubling, tripling down on it. Good luck with that. Good luck with that for the midterm election.
Today, the White House witnessed her vote. The president posted on Truth Social this morning that the meeting is to determine which of the Democrat agencies they recommend to be cut. This is in addition to the money for New York, for the transit funding being cut, and in addition to blue states seeing their energy funding cut. Two questions on this. I mean, do you think this is political targeting? Is that appropriate? And then in addition, HUD had on its agency webpage blaming radical Democrats for this. Is that an appropriate use of taxpayer money being overtly political? It's something we haven't seen before.
I think what the HUD website says is the objective truth that we're telling you right now. There are 44 Democrats in the Senate, and by the way, every Democrat in the House except one who voted to shut the government down. They are the ones that made that decision. The White House and the executive branch take no pleasure in this. But when they are tasked with determining what their priorities are, obviously they're going to follow their principles and priorities and not the other team. That's the results of an election that everybody voted in, the popular election and electoral college. I am. And that's why I'm pleading with the entire country to call your senators, your Democrat senators, the 44 people who want to shut the government down. You should call them right now and tell them to get here and get to work and open the country up for the people. So many of you asked me this morning about sombreros and memes and why Hakeem Jeffries is all alarmed by that. But look, these are games. These are sideshows. People are getting caught up in battles over social media memes. We've got to keep this is not a game. We've got to keep the government open for the people. I don't know why this is so complicated. And to my friend Hakeem, who I was asked about, man, just ignore it. I mean, Gavin Newsom was trolling me last night. He painted me like a minion. He painted me yellow with big glasses and overalls. And I thought it was hilarious. You don't respond to it. For all my friends, R's and D's, don't respond to it. Get to work, do the people's business, and let's get on with it. Thank you all so much.